let's talk about your obsessions. The recent obsessions.
Recent obsession.
Your recent obsession.
I actually just got the first Poldark book from the library. Ross Poldark is the first one in the series because I just finished watching the show Poldark.
Interesting.
I'm not like super obsessed about it, but I'm fascinated and I want to see the differences between the book and the series now. What are you obsessed with?
I've been obsessed with Perlin Noise.
What is that?
Perlin Noise is an algorithmic noise. Apparently, it was originally created for the movie Tron to simulate very clouds and wood grain textures, and actually won an animated and won an Oscar in like 1997.
So Pearl of Noise?
Perlin, like Berlin, but Perlin.
So Perlin Noise?
Perlin Noise.
Okay.
Yeah, so, but basically it's like, I'm trying to like, I've been learning videos like, okay, how does the noise works? And eventually I'm going to get down to like actually trying to recode that noise in my own kind of coding program. But I'll probably give up and be like, you know what, I'm just going to try doing the library of it somehow. I've got a hang of some programming, but not as much as I want to. It gives up.
It's a lot of brain power.
It's way too much brain power. You have to like sort things in different folders. Okay, it's not folders, and then you have to like, okay, make a list and then add to the list and then subtract from the list, and somehow the list ends up being more complicated when you first get to it. It's like, okay, I can access this. Yes, this is a table. And no, this isn't the table you want. Difficult. It's hard. But then I just go ahead and play The Witcher, and when I get frustrated. So that's what happens.
So, I mean, that's the thing you've been doing.
Yeah,
You've been playing.
I've been playing Witcher 3, starting from it. Definitely much cleaner written than Witcher 1. Combat is definitely better than Witcher 1. But it's all like it. But it's very, very much more streamlined. More streamlined than Witcher 1. So as an accessibility thing, it's a cool game. And, you know, I get to flash a sword around, and I got to pick out which jacket I wore before the prince. Okay, Emperor, you know, he's like, I went with the frilly one.
Oh, yeah, I saw you getting dressed for that.
Yeah.
You had to take a bath.
So, has it just been Poldark you've been interested? Any other obsessions?
Sherlock Holmes, of course.
Okay. Yeah, that's like...
You were waiting for me to bring that one up, right?
That's like the default one. Now, you were actually talking about this theory.
Okay, so I recently rejoined Tumblr strictly because of my Sherlock Holmes fandom, because I rewatched Sherlock at the beginning of this year and sort of have watched each episode a few times. But I rejoined Tumblr, so my impression is this is a very newly discovered theory because people hate Series 4.
With good reason. Good reason.
Very disjointed from the rest of the series.
Stephen Moffat did Stephen Moffat things.
Well, Moffat and Gaddis combined. They wrote this. They came up with this. They created an original story. They created a new... a sister for Sherlock Holmes that doesn't exist in canon. And originally their plan was, they would stick to canon specifically. Only characters that exist, rewrite characters, but only characters that exist within the series. But on Tumblr, I was watching a video, somebody discovered that... So in the last episode of Series 3, His Last Vow, and spoiler alert, if you haven't watched Sherlock from, a decade ago,
oh, it's been
Mary shoots Sherlock. So a scene where he's in the hospital talking to Janice? I just suddenly forgot her name. The girl he was pretending to date and propose to get close to Magnuson. It frequently shows in the background his heart monitor, and it's going forward properly, like a heart monitor should. Every time you see a shot of this heart monitor next to his head going the correct direction. And then there's this scene, after she leaves his room, they're done talking, he ups his morphine drip, goes into his mind palace. You see all this stuff where he's trying to figure things out, and then you see him coming up from his mind palace, back into wakefulness, and the heart monitor is going backwards. So I even because I'm a super nerd, I did this. They had done this on Tumblr, but I needed to prove it to myself, and I was showing Alan this.
Yeah.
I went to the episode, and I recorded the scene so I could put it into Premiere Pro and see it the way it's played in the episode, which looks backwards. And then I reversed it, and it turns out this episode, this tiny, like, probably 3-4 second scene was in reverse. Because when he's coming up from his pillow, it crinkles weird. But then, when I reversed the clip, the pillow crinkles naturally as he lays down and goes into his mind palace. So the theory is, throughout the episode, he's actually in his mind palace periodically when we don't even realize it, because it looks like he's coming out of his mind palace when it's actually in reverse going into his mind palace. So theoretically, Series 4 doesn't exist in the way that we saw it. So, you know, his sister Euros doesn't exist. Euros messing with John Watson doesn't exist. Euros trying to, you know, the whole last episode of the series doesn't exist, potentially because his mind palace is all out of whack.
It's a very far-stretched theory.
It's not far-stretched.
It is very. It could have just been a cool cinematic effect. And
It was a weird little clip that was in reverse. Stephen Moffat and Mark Gatiss are so detailed. For this tiny little 3 to 4 second clip to be reversed just to show him coming out of his mind palace, that's totally something they would have just done a reshoot for, so they could have done it properly. They're so detailed, they would have done a reshoot.
very, very far-fetched.
Now, I do know Moffat and Gatiss are working on something for, like, kind of another Jekyll and Hyde.
Mm-hmm.
They did a fantastic series years ago. I believe it was just called Jekyll. I don't remember exactly, but it was so good. I need to rewatch it. But they're doing a new one that I believe is not related to the original. But, like, they're completely reworking it again. Moffat drives me nuts. Gatiss and Moffat together, I really like the combination.